This is one we've talked about a time or two. And this is medical weight loss methods, and this one is specific to is the end of an era coming. And I'm gonna explain what that means. So Trey, I'm getting old, man. You know, I was just thinking this when I was going over the segment. Man, I've been a surgeon for 22 years, if you can even hardly believe that.
I like it.
And I know it's right. Is
some
that
good
crazy?
Experience. Nothing wrong with that.
Huh?
Some good experience.
I'm leveled up, man.
Yeah.
I'm leveled up. That's what I like to think of. I'm
Yes,
not old.
indeed.
I'm just leveled up.
Yes,
All right.
indeed.
So I've seen a lot of trends over these years, and it's been really interesting, and not specifically to medical weight loss, but just in general. But I have to say that the trends and changes in medical weight loss have been pretty crazy. And the reason I came up with this segment is a recent article I read from JAMA, which is the Journal of the American Medical Association. Trey, throw that article up so people want to look at it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, right there. This was talking about some of the changes that are happening, and which I will explain. So I was a med student in 1998. God, it's hard to believe it's been that long. And when I was a medical student, things like medical weight loss were centered around drugs. And the big one was phentermine, also called Adipex. In fact, throw up that pic, Trey. It's from Time Magazine in 1996, and it's talking about this new weight loss drug. Is it up there? Yeah, the hot new diet pill, Redux, which Redux was just kind of a form of phentermine. It was kind of the hot thing was to take these appetite suppressants. But the crazy thing about, do you know what phentermine was, Trey?
I do not.
I'm not expecting you to know, but have you ever heard?
No, I do not. Is it similar to like hydroxycut? Like that type of stuff?
No, that's something different.
Okay,
these
different.
are actually amphetamines.
Oh, really?
Like, you know, in the class of like Breaking Bad methamphetamine, like these are like versions of that they're giving to people.
That's legal?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, it's a very low dose, right? So you're not getting necessarily high off this stuff, but like the effects are the same.
Oh, no.
And one of the things it does is it dramatically suppresses your appetite. Like you're just not hungry.
Right.
And it actually works pretty good. In fact, you know, phentermine is still around. It's much lower doses these days. And of course, you know, it's regulated very heavily by the DEA. And like as a doctor, you have to really consult with your patients that, hey, these things are not necessarily great for you. And if you're going to take them, you only want to take them for a short time.
Yeah.
You know, back in the 90s, they had these kind of more dangerous combinations. Did you ever hear of Fen-Phen?
No.
So Fen-Phen was a combo drug. And the problem is when you comboed Fen-Phen, so Fen-Phen was a combo of phentermine and another drug, which off the top of my head, I can't remember. I didn't write down the name. It's got some long name. Yeah. And the problem was when you combine them together, it was very harmful, and it caused pulmonary hypertension and heart valve disease. And people were like actually dying from this. Yeah. And so there was like this big, you know, scandal about Fen-Phen. They took it off the market. So like, you know, these medical drugs to lose weight were... They worked, but they had these downsides, right?
Sure, absolutely. That's a pretty big downside.
Yeah, that's a pretty big downside, right?
Yes, indeed.
So fast forward to 2002 when I became a surgery resident. At that point, the weight loss surgeries, which were a thing in the 90s, but they were brand new. But in 2002, when I began surgery residency, these weight loss surgeries were hitting full stride. They were becoming insanely popular. And surgeries like the lap band, which I have a picture of that. Throw that next pic up, Trey, if you would. So lap band is just kind of what it sounds. Lap means laparoscopically placed, and the band is a band that went around the top of the stomach, and it had this inflatable port. And so you put the band in, and then you gradually put fluid into this port. So the port's put underneath your skin. So you can inflate this band by putting a needle through the skin. And what it does is it kind of constricts the stomach and makes a pouch there at the top. So it makes your stomach a lot smaller, and that results in you not eating as much. And man, I did a ton of these surgeries. Like I wasn't like the primary surgeon. I was just the resident. You know, I was helping the attending surgeon do these, but I did probably hundreds of these things. Well, come to find out that not an insignificant number of people, when they have this band on their stomach, actually get like problems with their stomach where the band can erode into the stomach. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a problem. And so it wasn't like a huge percentage, but it was enough that these surgeries quickly fell out of favor. And when I say quickly, it took a few years to kind of figure out what was going on. Yeah. But there was enough people that had like these really serious problems that the lap band went away.
Now, lap band, I do remember that surgery.
You remember that?
I remember when it was like really popular.
Yeah, it was popular for years.
Yeah,
like it wasn't like
absolutely.
it came out and then it was gone. Like it was popular for a while. And the other one surgery that was more invasive, but was better at losing weight was the laparoscopic gastric bypass or open gastric bypass.
Okay, I've heard of that one.
Gastric bypass.
Yeah,
okay.
uh-huh.
I have a picture of what it looks like. Now, it's kind of confusing, but basically what they're doing here is they're taking the intestine and they're cutting it down low and bringing it up to a pouch, and they're rerouting the other end they cut into the side. And so what it basically does is it bypasses a lot of the absorptive capacity of your intestines. Mm-hmm. So what happens is you eat food, one, you don't want to eat as much because the gastric pouch is smaller, but also you have less room to absorb it, so you're getting less calories from your food. And I did a ton of these as well. They were very, very large surgeries. Also, you tend to be doing them on bigger patients, right? Because obviously, not a thin person is going to want a gastric bypass. And so, it's a combination of a really big surgery in a patient that's not the best surgical candidate. And, people died from these. I distinctly remember, having patients that were, and I'm talking like really big, like 600 pounds. I worked with one guy who only did high-risk bariatrics, which means, if you were like 200 pounds, he wouldn't see. He was doing like patients over 300-400 pounds.
Wow.
And, you do a major surgery like that in somebody who is not a great surgical candidate. And I remember people died from this. What would happen is if the areas where you sutured the intestines, we use staplers generally, but the areas where you connect the intestines, if they got a leak and patients leaked gastric contents into their abdominal cavity, they got really sick.
Oh, wow.
And so, these things, even though they were somewhat dangerous, they were very popular because they were very effective.
My dad is a bigger guy, and he was looking at getting gastric bypass.
Oh,
it was a while. It was years ago.
He ended up not doing it?
No, he ended up not doing it. But
Well, fortunately, as with most things, everything got better with time. And the final revision of that is what's still used today, which is called the gastric sleeve, which I got a picture of that. So the gastric sleeve is just a simpler version of the gastric bypass. It basically makes the stomach really small by stapling across a large portion of the stomach, and you feel full quicker. And so this one doesn't change the absorptive capacity of the intestines because there's no bypass. But what it does is it makes you eat less, because if your stomach's smaller and you start eating, you get full really quickly and you lose weight.
Yeah.
And so this has kind of been the reigning champion of weight loss, medical weight loss methods for many years, and seems like things are changing, and I guarantee that you know why things are changing because we've talked about it.
I'm drawing a blank.
Sorry, I put you on the spot.
No, you are fine.
Like Ozempic, man.
Oh, yeah.
The new weight loss medications.
Yeah, for sure.
The new weight loss. Sorry, man, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, you are fine.
So now you have the GLP-1 agonist. So GLP-1 agonist is the term for the drugs like Ozempic, Wegovy, tirzepatide, and this is glucagon-like peptide 1 agonist receptor, which in very simple terms, it means that these drugs stimulate receptors that affect how full you feel, because there is a receptor for when I feel full. So it targets that, and it also targets the how quickly your stomach empties. And so it makes you feel full, and it makes your stomach empty slower, and you lose a lot of weight when those things are triggered. And what's interesting is these drugs have been out forever too. They came out actually in 2005, and I didn't know this, but when I was doing research, I love doing these segments. I always learn something new, right?
Sure.
So we've talked about these things, but every time I read a new article, it's like, man, I learned something new. Yeah. So the original GLP-1 agonists were derived from an animal. And if you can wild guess what it was, Trey, I will buy you a steak dinner in any restaurant in this town.
An animal. Can I get a clue? Like any kind of hint?
Okay, it is a cold-blooded animal.
Oh, man. A frog?
No.
Dang.
A Gila monster.
Okay.
A Gila.
I would have never guessed that.
Who would have thought that they got a drug from a Gila monster? I mean, it's like you're looking at that like, I bet I can make a drug out of that thing. I
can't 100% say I even know what a Gila monster is.
Oh, it's like those. They're like the they have like a really bumpy. They're a bumpy lizard, but their bites are venomous.
Got you.
Yeah, you don't want to get bit by a Gila monster.
Oh, I have seen those. I think then. Yeah,
they're like a really small Komodo dragon that's poisonous. Like, I mean, what are these things? I've never seen one myself. I think they live in like Arizona or something. I don't think you're going to see one running through your yard.
Texas.
So anyway, oddly enough, the first GLP-1 agonists were derived from Gila monsters. So the reason these drugs were originally developed is because when you stimulate those glucagon-like peptide receptors, it causes insulin release, right? So as insulin goes up, blood sugar goes down. So these drugs were actually derived to treat diabetes, is what they were designed for.
Right.
But what's interesting, and this happens, the other drug that this happened to is Viagra. Viagra was not created to help people get erections.
I did not
It was
know that.
created as like a heart medication or blood pressure medication. And one of the side effects is people were getting these like erections. Like people that couldn't get erections, they're like, whoa, wait a second. And so it became much popular as a, basically an erection medication as what it was originally designed for. And glucagon-like peptide receptor agonists are the same thing, I think. I think that they're... I don't know the exact date on it, but I bet you anything that there is more revenue for people using GLP-1 agonists for weight loss than there is for diabetes.
Yeah, for sure.
Because what I kind of sidetracked myself, but as I said, when they were giving people these GLP-1 agonists for diabetes, they saw that patients were losing weight. And so this is a drug that was initially designed for one thing that has a side effect that now has become a new treatment modality,
right?
Which is interesting. I think that's pretty crazy. And so these drugs, like I said, came out a long time ago, but they didn't really become popular until like the 2010s. You started to see some articles about them. Once again, they were at that time just used for diabetes, but as they learned that people were losing weight, they suddenly started giving these drugs to people who couldn't lose weight. So like the patients who might get a gastric bypass or a gastric sleeve, and you can lose pretty crazy amounts of weights with these, like average maybe 15 to 20%, but some people were losing up to 50% of their body weight.
Oh wow!
I know, it's wild, right?
Yeah, that's a lot.
And it works. I mean, people lose weight when they take these drugs, and even better, these medications really have pretty minimal side effects. Like some of the side effects they list are nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, and abdominal pain, but they're pretty mild, and they tend to go away. And we actually offer the GLP-1 agonists in my office. It's very common now. People are getting the compounded versions of these, so they're much cheaper. And we have not had but one patient stop taking it due to side effects.
Oh, wow.
And this person just like, if they'd have pushed through, they probably would have been fine, but they just didn't like the feeling of being nauseous and they stopped.
Sure.
But everyone else has been able to take these drugs. The other thing, we're not seeing like any major complications from these drugs. Not when I say we, not like me and my personal practice, but like the entirety of the medical community. Like, because people are doing a lot of research now into these medications because so many people are taking them for weight loss.
Of course.
And all these studies are coming out, and they're not seeing anything
detrimental,
majorly bad. Yeah. We talked about Kate Moss's
sister.
Yeah, she had a problem with it, but she got hers off the street. She
Right.
got it from a friend, and she was taking like twice the dosage.
And it wasn't like prescribed to her.
Yeah, right.
directly,
I mean, obviously, if you take something that's not properly prescribed, it could be problematic.
We do have a question.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody asked, could Dexedrine be used as a weight loss pill?
Dexedrine? I'm not familiar. Isn't that like an antihistamine?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
I'd have to Google it.
You'll have to forgive me. I know a lot of medications. That's not one I'm super familiar with.
Yeah.
Dexedrine, I've heard of it. I think Dexedrine's like antihistamine or anti-allergy, maybe.
Maybe.
I'm not sure. So yeah, I'll look that one up. I would say that if something could be used for weight loss medication, it's probably already being used for weight loss medication. So my guess is probably no.
Yeah.
But I'm not 100% on that one. So don't quote me on that.
Right on.
But yeah, so this study, and this is the whole, the whole focus of this segment is this article that came out of Harvard, which is the one that we posted there at the beginning, had some really interesting data. So from 22 to 23, so the years 2022 to 2023, the number of weight loss surgeries dropped precipitously. There was a 26% decrease from year to year in weight loss surgeries. At the same time, there was 135% increase in the number of people taking GLP-1 agonists.
Wow.
And that's why I think that maybe we are at the end of an era.
Wow.
You know, gastric sleeves kind of reigned supreme for a long time as the best weight loss, you know, medical weight loss method. Of course, always I think the best is diet and exercise.
Sure.
You know, if you can lose weight on your own, that's obviously better than taking a medication or having surgery. But as we all realize, not everyone can do that.
Right.
You know,
True.
and being heavier, whether it be for your own just kind of personal wanting to be the best version of yourself, or, you know, more importantly, the medical problems that can come along with that, you know, losing weight is something that is generally a good idea for a lot of people. And
Sure.
so I've talked a lot about these GLP-1 agonists. I am a fan of them. People can lose weight on them that couldn't lose weight otherwise. And the side effects and complications are pretty minimal. And then also we did a study. Remember that, or we did a segment because there was a study that came out that showed for people who are obese, if you take these GLP-1 agonists, there was a 77% decrease in mortality versus those who aren't. Remember we did that like a month or two ago?
I do
So
kinda
now
remember
it's
that.
like you're getting these studies that just show these great health benefits. You know, people are losing weight and there's not a lot of side effects. I mean, I think you're going to see less and less people getting weight loss surgery.
The end of an era. Huh?
End of an era. Man, I've seen
indeed.
2 eras. How many eras am I going to see in before? What's going to replace the GLP-1s where I'm like, I can't believe the GLP-1s
Yeah,
are
for
going
sure.
away.
But I will say this: the eras nowadays, they last so much shorter.
Yeah, they do. Right?
Like, it's so
something
much
new.
shorter.
And the next thing
Yeah.
it's going to be is you're going to wave a wand over you, and it's going to just make your metabolism speed up, and then you're going to lose weight. And
Right.
you'll be like, I can't believe it. It's crazy. So,
That's how it
interesting
goes.
stuff.